We've talked about being those that are hasty, the characteristic of haste, and then we went over to talk about diligence. And as part of talking about diligence, some of the verses we read talked about slack and slothful. And so we're coming back over to the negative side. There's no good things about the slack or the slothful at all. The three words here, I used all three of these words. They're all three used in the book of Proverbs and other places as well. But they have a very close meaning to one another. To be slack is to not be diligent, to be lazy. To be slothful is an adjective that describes the activity of being slack. So that's kind of an interesting thought. And sluggard is the noun that identifies someone. So sluggard would be the individual themselves, as the Bible would term them, who is in this type of a characteristic in their life. So, what are the characteristics of a sluggard? Someone who is slack and slothful. First of all, they're a procrastinator. Ecclesiastes chapter number 10 and verse number 18 says, "By much slothfulness the building decayeth, and through idleness of the hands the house droppeth through." They just put off things that need to be dealt with. I want to procrastinate, but I've never gotten around to it. But we put things off, right? Things that need to be done. You all know what I'm talking about when you have teenagers and they know that their responsibility is to take out the trash or do the dishes or something like that. You know when you walk into the room and you smell the aroma that they have been slothful in their responsibilities. They've been slack. They have not done what they needed to do. And if you ask them, "Well, I was just getting ready to do that." "Son, by now the whole house stinketh." Amen. Procrastinating has caused a problem, and it certainly does. And the Bible says if we procrastinate in this fashion, are slothful, things fall apart. You know what it's sad to see someone, a church. And by the way, and Brother Gossmeyer could probably tell us stories, and I won't ask him to do so, but in traveling just a little bit, when we were in evangelism, I was shocked at the condition of church houses. It's sad. Yes, sir. And I always thought about Haggai. Why do you build sealed houses? You wouldn't treat your own house that way. If your house was falling down, you'd fix it. I would hope. Amen. If the paint was peeling in your house, you'd repaint it. And yet, so many times, church houses are left unkept and uncleaned and disheveled and treated that way. And by the way, let me just throw this in here, just actually not even in the notes, but this is for free. Don't treat this house in a way you wouldn't treat your own. Amen. And don't let your children treat this house in a way. If your kids would do that at home and you would be okay with it, then it's okay here. But I seriously doubt that anybody in our congregation would allow their kids to tear up the things in their house without ever correcting or fixing those things. So if your kid tears something up, correct them and fix it. I understand they're kids. I'm not saying everyone here should have perfect kids. No one here has perfect kids other than myself and my father. But yeah. But at the same time, this house matters, right? And it matters when people come in, how it looks. And And sometimes we procrastinate. And I dare say, and this really wasn't the direction I was intending on going, but maybe I need to go this way. But sometimes there are things that you know need to be done here, and you've put them off, and you haven't taken care of them, and you keep thinking every time you come to church, oh, I need to. Stop putting it off.
Amen.
Get to it. Don't be slack or slothful in your duties of serving the Lord. Amen? A sluggard is a procrastinator. They just put it off. I'll get around to it. I'll get around to it. I'll get around to it. Let me say this as well. Oftentimes, we are slack in not just physical responsibilities, but we can be very slack putting off, procrastinating spiritual responsibilities, and those become very dangerous. I can't tell you how many times I've heard people give the testimony, I've been meaning to tell that person about the Lord for months or years, and then they died, and I never got around to it. What a shame. Why? Procrastination. Being slack in your spiritual endeavors. Slothful in your spiritual... Well, preacher, I mean to do my Bible reading. I mean to pray, but it just keeps getting pushed out there. It's a characteristic. You say, now you may be very diligent in one area of your life and very slothful in another. Right? And we have to take account of those things. A sluggard is a procrastinator. A sluggard loves sleep. I don't get, I'm just throwing this out here for our teenagers and maybe some of our young adults and missionaries. When you throw a rock at a pack of dogs and one of them yelps, it's the one that got hit. So that's... honestly, I get, if you're working all night, you're working and you come home late in the night and you sleep a little later than maybe you normally would, I get that. What I don't get is someone who can sleep till noon every day and it never bother them. I honestly don't get that. Unless that's your job time frame, to just do it because you're too lazy to get up and do anything, or you don't have initiative enough to get up and do anything, that's not a good attribute in life. It says in Proverbs 6:9, "How long wilt thou sleep, O sluggard? When wilt thou arise out of thy sleep?" Proverbs 19:15, "Slothfulness casteth into a deep sleep, an idle soul shall suffer hunger." Proverbs 26:14 says, "As the door turneth upon his hinges, so does the slothful upon his bed." He gets uncomfortable, so he just rolls over instead of getting up. That's what this isn't my idea about this. 3 verses in the book of Proverbs talk about this very thing. And you say, well, I'm tired. That's because you're not doing enough.
That's right.
And I'm serious about that. I heard Danny Farley say one time, I think it's a very good statement, my favorite quote from Danny Farley, other than about mudding, and that's a different story, but you know what I'm talking about. But my favorite quote from a pastor down in Houston, Danny Farley, he said, nothing will make you more tired than nothing will make you more tired than something will. Now, think about that. He's from Houston, all right? Doing nothing will make you more tired than doing something will. You want to get real tired, just stay at home, sitting around doing nothing. And you'll have no energy. You'll have no energy to get up and go. But you know what happens? When you get up and go do things, you get more energy. Isn't that weird? You want to build energy? You want to build strength and stamina? You don't do it by resting. You do it by working. You rest between work, and the more that you work and you use rest in a proper way, the more you can do. But a sluggard just loves sleep. They don't care what inconvenience they put on everybody else. They don't care that they're not accomplishing anything with their life. I think some of them are determined. You know, they say statistically you'll spend a third of your life in bed. I think some of them are determined to see if they can surpass all expectations. They love sleep. They sleep in. They oversleep. They're late and they procrastinate because they don't have any initiative to get up and go and accomplish anything. The sluggard is an excuse maker.
Yes, sir.
Who was I talking to earlier about that? Someone come in and said something. They said, that sounds like an excuse. Proverbs 20 verse number 4 says, the sluggard will not plow by reason of the cold. Therefore shall he beg in harvest and have nothing. He says, I can't plow, it's cold outside today. I can't plow, it's hot outside today. I can't plow, it might rain. You ever heard someone, the weather thing drives me nuts.
Amen.
Pastor, it's supposed to snow. Are we going to cancel service? Supposed to. They don't have a clue what it's going to do until it's already happened.
Right.
They guess. We don't cancel service on supposed to. We just don't. We've canceled service one time, and this was the rule. If Walmart closes, we'll close. And the one time we've canceled service, I left my house, and before I got to Highway 37, there were 6 accidents. I turned on Highway 37, and the ice was so bad, there were cars like turned every direction. And I said, you know, today might be that day. You know, one time. You say, well, that's dangerous. If you don't feel safe, stay home, watch online. I'm okay with that. But here's what I'm not okay with. Making plans to quit before we even get started. All kinds of excuses of why we can't. You know, I don't think I'm going to be able to go on visitation this coming Saturday. It's supposed to be 45. Is it? I don't know. You know, it might rain. It might this. It might that. Well, it might. It might not. I have a weather rock at home. When it's wet, it's raining. When it's white, it's snowing. Right? It's going to be what it is. And life moves forward no matter what. But the sluggard has all kinds of excuses about why they can't do things and why they're not going to be able to accomplish it. Sluggard wastes their resources. Proverbs 12, verse number 27, the slothful man roasteth not that which he took in hunting, but the substance of a diligent man is precious. They waste what they have. I talked about that last time when we talked about the diligent man, about how it's precious to him. But the sluggard's on the other side of that. The sluggard doesn't finish the tasks that they start. They start and stop. They start and they've not pre-thought and they've not planned. Proverbs 18, verse number 9 says, he also that is slothful in his work is brother to him that is a great waster. Slothful, not diligent about the work, not cautious and careful and not purposeful and intent in their labor. They're just kind of going through the motions. I've worked with people like this. Drives me nuts. They're just like, what was that? Dopey? Remember that cartoon? Dopey? And they spend their whole day in, like, they have 2 gears, stop and slow. Right? And they never get diligent. They're just slothful. They start something and then they don't finish it. And you come along and go, why isn't this done? They don't finish tasks. That's a characteristic of the slothful, of the sluggard. The sluggard is continually in want. They never have what they need. They never have enough. Proverbs 13, verse number 4 says, the soul of the sluggard desireth and hath nothing, but the soul of the diligent shall be made fat. Proverbs 21:25 says, the desire of the slothful killeth him, for his hands refuse to labor. He wants, he just won't work. He wants. We have a nation that's becoming a nation of sluggards who want somebody, give me, the socialist mentality, and it kills cultures and societies. Everyone becomes a sluggard in those societies. They're bad employees. Proverbs 10 and verse 26 says, as vinegar to the teeth and smoke to the eyes, so is the sluggard to them that sendeth him. They go, oh, what was I thinking? Giving responsibility to this person. They never take the responsibility serious and accomplish it. The sluggard is full of irrational fear. Can you tell what that is up in the corner? It's a lion in the street. I know that sounds funny, right? You say, why is there a lion in the street? Why is that on the slide? Here's why. Proverbs 26:13. The slothful man saith, there is a lion in the way. A lion is in the streets. I thought, sure enough, there is. But I've never seen that in person. Proverbs 22:13 says, the slothful man saith, there is a lion without. I shall be slain in the streets. Anyone here ever seen a lion in the streets?
Yeah,
Just now? In person? Right? Can you imagine saying something like that? Just, hey, you going to go to work today? I don't know. There might be a lion outside. I mean, I don't know if there is, but it's possible, and I'm in no condition to fight a lion today, so I probably better just stay in bed. That sounds strange, doesn't it? The weirdest thing I've ever seen in the street was on Brexit, the day of Brexit. I get up, I look at the news, and Brexit vote was, successful, and I said, wow, honey, I didn't expect that. I get in the car to drive to my parents' house. I'm driving down 24th Street from our house to their house, and there's a car stopped here and a car stopped over there. It looks like a little dog's running between the cars, and I sat there for a second. I'm like, I'm not sitting here waiting for they're just sitting in their cars watching this dog. So I pull around the car, and I start to pull past it, and all of a sudden I think, that's a weird-looking dog. That's not a dog. It's a monkey. Somebody's monkey got loose on 24th Street out there, and I'm looking at it, and I roll my window down, and I said, that's a monkey. And they said, yeah, we know. And that monkey, I rolled my window down, I'm looking, and that monkey come charging at my car, and I'm thinking something. I roll my window up, and it jumped and hit my window and come and hit the front of my car. And I'm like, I'm not sitting here and letting a monkey abuse my car, so I drove off. But that was a weird day. Brexit and a monkey attacked my car in Newcastle, Oklahoma. I called my wife. I said, this is going to be a bad day. I don't know what else is going to happen today. But it would be an irrational fear, wouldn't it? You would not, if you lived in Madagascar or you lived in Gibraltar, there's monkeys in Gibraltar, they jump on your car. But I've never once got up in the morning in Oklahoma and said, honey, I don't think I'm going to go to work today in case monkeys attack our car or lions are out in the street. But a sluggard has irrational fear because they've put so much off, they know it's going to catch up. That's what really the point is. They've put so much off, they know eventually it's going to catch up to them. And so they get fearful about weird and irrational things. All right, finally, characteristics of a sluggard. They refuse to believe they actually have a problem. Proverbs 26:16 says, a sluggard is wiser in his own conceit than 7 men that can render a reason. It's amazing to me how good at giving a reason for not being able to do anything some people are. They're much better at giving a reason why they can't do things than they are at actually doing things. They're wiser in their own conceit. And they really don't believe they have a problem. The problem is there's too many obstacles in their way. Everything's gets stacked against them, and they just can't seem to come, so they're not even going to try. They're going to put it away. They're not going to worry about it. They're going to go back to bed and those type of things. These are characteristics, according to the Scriptures, of a person who is slothful, slack, or who is a sluggard. All right? So there are some natural consequences, though, that God's made to motivate people away from this position. First, hunger. Suffering hunger. Proverbs 26:15 says, "The slothful hideth his hand in his bosom, and it grieveth him to put it again to his mouth." In other words, he's just like going to wait around for someone to come and feed him. He doesn't even have enough initiative to feed himself, because if he had to labor, then he might get too hungry, or might have a problem, or might have this go on. Proverbs 19:24, "The slothful man hideth his hand in his bosom, he will not so much as bring it to his mouth again." 2 Thessalonians 3:10 says, "For even when we were with you, this we commanded you, that if any would not work, neither should he eat." Hunger. We read several verses that talked about the condition of the slothful man's field, the condition of his crops and his herds and so forth, that they go to waste, right? Not only hunger, but poverty. In Proverbs chapter 24, verse 30 through 34, it says, "I went by the field of the slothful and the vineyard of the man void of understanding, and lo, it was all grown over with thorns and nettles, and covered the face thereof, and the stone wall thereof was broken down. Then I saw and considered it well. I looked upon it and received instruction. Yet a little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to sleep, so shall thy poverty come as one that traveleth, and thy want as an armed man." You want to get poor? Go on a trip. Drains the money, doesn't it? And that's what God compares slothfulness. It's a drain on your resources, and it'll steal your resources. That you may have a field, you may have a vineyard, something that could be profitable, something that could be bountiful, but if you don't care for those things that you have been given, you will be poor. Most poverty is the result of slothfulness. If a person doesn't make much, but they're diligent with what they have, they will not be poor forever. It's just a matter of fact. A slothful person faces, according to the Scriptures, a hedge of thorns, meaning everywhere they turn, it's hard. Proverbs 15:19 says, "The way of a slothful man is as a hedge of thorns, but the way of the righteous is made plain." A slothful man, he doesn't have enough initiative to chop the hedges down, so every time he turns this way, there's problems, and he turns this way, and there's problems, and there's problems, and there's problems. And he never gets out of that because he doesn't become diligent. Proverbs 24 and verse number 12, verse number 24 says, "The hand of the diligent shall bear rule, but the slothful shall be under tribute." And so, another natural result, consequence of slothfulness is servitude. Servitude. Now, these are things that God has put in place to try and motivate people to get out of a slothful quality in their life, to become diligent. God naturally, see, we as a culture are trying to work against God's natural plan. God's natural plan is very capitalistic. If a man does not work, he should not eat. And we say we should feed all the poor, we should feed all the hungry. And I'm not against helping the poor and helping the hungry, but at a certain point, you've got to teach them how to help themselves. You cannot help them forever. You can't. That's why, by the way, we do the food pantry, but we also have community gardens. And for people that come on a continual basis, Brother Victor and I have talked about, if they come every month, after a few months, we need to say, now, if you're going to continue to come, you're required to keep a garden. Well, you can't tell people they have to keep a garden. If they're taking our food for free, we can. Government's not teaching them anything by just giving them a handout every month and never teaching them to work. We'll teach them how to do it. We set it up for them. It's not hard. It'll help provide for them. Amen. It's a good thing. Yes, it's a good thing. But hunger and poverty and trouble on every side and servitude, these are things that God put in place to help those that are slothful about their business and their activities to learn to be diligent and to get themselves out of that situation. So God put those things there to help them. How can you and I help someone who's a sluggard? Well, first of all, let them suffer. And that sounds cruel. I know, I'm heartless. Heartless conservative. But notice what Jesus said in Matthew 25, verse 26 through 30. His Lord answered and said unto him, Thou wicked and slothful servant, thou knewest that I reap where I sowed not, and gathered where I have not strawed. Thou oughtest therefore to have put my money to the exchangers, and then at my coming I should receive mine own with usury. Take therefore the talent from him, and give it to him that hath 10 talents. For unto every one that hath shall be given, and he shall have abundance. But from him that hath not shall be taken away even that which he hath. And cast ye the unprofitable servant into outer darkness. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. That's pretty harsh. But that's what God says will happen to a slothful servant spiritually. That's harsh. Can I tell you something? If you're constantly helping them in their problem. And I'm not talking about, listen, everyone has problems at times that we need help. Everyone does. Myself, you, every member of our church at times will have a problem. They need help. I'm not against helping people. We should help people. We should help people. But a person who refuses to help themselves needs to suffer the consequences of what they're doing. If they refuse to get a job and work, I've got a bad back, because a slothful person always has excuses. You know what's amazing to me? How many people with disabilities have jobs? And it doesn't seem to affect them when they go to the amusement parks. When they go to the races, when they go to the football game, when they go to this and they go to... Doesn't seem to affect them then. They seem to be able to do whatever they want pretty well. They just can't work. No, they just don't want to work. That's right. And if you keep bailing them out of the problems, they'll continue to allow you to bail them out of the problems. You've got to let them suffer in their problem. You say, well, how can I tell? If someone is diligent about their business, they're just needing a little assistance, they just need someone to come along. I need more than I need. Aren't affected. And it affects your spirit. Right? It does. Listen, someone that's in that condition, they need to struggle so that they'll face the natural consequences of hunger, poverty, and troubles and so forth that God's put there to try and teach them to be diligent. All right? Secondly, show them examples of diligence. Proverbs 6:6 says, Go to the ant, thou sluggard, consider her ways and be wise. In other words, God said, you want to learn how to be diligent? Look at those that are diligent. Study those that are successful and are prepared and are working and things that are working in their life and emulate those things. Right? Do those things that make for success. Third, show them the profit of labor. Sitting around, you're being slothful about this. In Judges 18 and verse number 9, it says, They said, Arise, that we may go up against them, for we have seen the land, and behold, it is very good. And are ye still? Be not slothful to go and enter to possess the land. What was it called? The promised land. What was it God told them? It's a land flowing with milk and honey, right? You know what he was trying to show them? The bounty, the blessing in diligence. He said, you're missing out on the blessing. You're missing out on the benefits. Look at all the benefits. A person who is a sluggard or slothful, they need to see examples of diligence, and they need to see the benefit, the profit of labor. Finally, make them work. Hebrews 6:12 says that ye be not slothful, but followers of them who through faith and patience inherit the promise. Romans 12:11 says, not slothful in business, fervent in spirit, serving the Lord. It's very clear in the New Testament, several places, that God intends for His people to be a working, diligent people. That's just the nature. Amen. Start working. Be diligent. And you won't have time to murmur and gripe and mumble. You'll start getting strong. I think I've shared this with you before, but up at the Western Heritage Museum, formerly known as the Cowboy Hall of Fame, there's an area in there dedicated to the Calvary, and there's some quotes above on the wall. That's my favorite museum in the town, by the way. But there's some quotes on the wall above there, and one of the quotes was by a general, and he said that when the infantry travels with the cavalry, for the first 3 days, the cavalry has to stop early for the infantry to be able to keep pace. But after the 3rd day, the infantry has to stop earlier and earlier for the cavalry to keep up. And I thought, that is so intriguing to me. And you think about horsepower, right? And man, how strong a horse is. A horse is made for burst of strength. You are made for diligent, continual labor. The more you work, the stronger you will become.
Yep, that's right.
The more you do, the more you'll be able to do. But slothfulness robs you of that characteristic that God built into you. And God wants us to rid ourselves of those things, examine the diligence that He's placed in others, let it become part of us, see what profit God has given, and labor and work. Say, well, I just kind of don't want to do it. That's a sin problem.
That's right.
It really is. It's a sin problem. When our desire is our own comfort and pleasure, that's a sin problem. We get our heart right with the Lord.
Amen.
And get focused on Him. Because remember when He created man, He made this really odd statement. I mean, it's strange. 6 days shall a man work? 6 days? I was really shocked in Italy. They go to school 6 days a week. And they have 6-day work weeks. They are backward. Isn't that weird? 6-day work weeks? 6 days. How many of you kids want to sign up for that? 6-day school weeks. Monday through Saturday. Whew. I'm glad I'm an American where I can sleep in. Maybe that's the problem. We're slothful, not diligent. Let's bow our heads.